Hi, this is Sherry Rendell, FAIR's State and Local Engagement Director, and I am here with a special guest, Sheriff Sam Page from Rockingham County, North Carolina, and he has been the sheriff there since 1998, has over 30 years of law enforcement experience. Thank you so much, Sheriff, for joining me today.
It's an honor to be here today.
Well, we have some exciting news down in North Carolina. And when we spoke yesterday, you said, and I quote, "This is a historical moment in North Carolina. HB 10 will require all North Carolina sheriffs to uniformly cooperate with immigration officials. And this is something that needs to be done to protect our communities and uphold the rule of law." What do you have to say to our audience here today? And how are you feeling this morning after you've had time to just let it seep in?
Well, I thought about it. It's been about a 5.5, 6 year process and multiple vetoes by our current governor. But yesterday and the day before, this House spoke and overrode the veto of Governor Cooper. And then, of course, again, yesterday in the Senate, there was a veto override. So now it's law. And under House Bill 10, it would require the sheriffs, as you said, all sheriffs in North Carolina to honor federal detainers. Something that I feel is important. I've said this before that, our job in law enforcement is to identify those criminal offenders in our communities and then when we appropriate time, remove this person from our communities, whether it be a person commits a criminal offense or a person who's here illegally in the country. But as we're speaking about people that are illegally in the country, when they're committing criminal offenses, they self-identify by arrest. And then when they enter our jails and we are able to determine that they're not native born and not legally in the country, working with ICE, then if ICE or Immigration Services issues a detainer to hold that person, we honor those federal detainers. But now with the law, all sheriffs will be required to honor detainers. So therefore, at the appropriate time, the person will be interfaced with ICE for removal out of our country. And it's a lot safer releasing a person directly to the federal authorities than it is to release that person back out in the community and you have to go search for the person, which can expose you to other dangers.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned this was a 5+ year process. I know Rome wasn't built in a day. Can you talk about, your involvement all those years and how it came to be to fruition?
For several years, I've worked with the National Sheriff's Association, about 14 years with the National Sheriff's Association, and part of that, bigger part of that time with the Border Security and Immigrations Committee. And during the process, the discussion came up about ICE detainers, and it has been a big conversation, not only in our state, but also with the national sheriffs. And we were looking at different models to be able to do so. And it came about in North Carolina that, a sheriff did not have to honor a federal detainer, but he could if he chose to, and the court supported that. So we chose to honor federal detainers, which a majority of the sheriffs in North Carolina did, because we felt like it, did, at least I personally feel like it made my community safer by removing criminal offenders from our community at the appropriate time. I'm very excited it came about, but I feel like now it's going to be a good process because those persons that are committing crimes, victimizing our citizens or our immigrant population, once they enter our jail system through arrest, then there's a process for a proper removal directly to ICE. It just makes good sense. And it's about public safety and protecting our communities.
Would you say that there is a chance that it would instill fear in your communities by having this law? I know that one of the immigrant rights groups said that creating a bill that like HB 10 creates an environment where families live in fear and they're going to be scared to call law enforcement. Have you ever experienced that in your community?
No, and actually, I've done quite a bit of research, and from my reading, is a study done by the federal government that actually persons that are in the immigrant population report similar to or more than the U.S. citizens in their study that was done back in, I think, between 2017 and 2019. Personally, I have not been exposed to that conversation or persons like the word you use is a chilling effect. But we work with all communities in Rockingham County, all communities, citizens or not, and we provide services for everybody that resides in our county. So if you call for law enforcement assistance and you're a crime victim, we're going to come and help you regardless of your immigration status. That's irrelevant. If you're a crime victim, we're going to come and help you. And I stated this yesterday, is that, back in, I think, 2005, under George W. Bush, our president, that they started the U visa program, which was a program designed to help provide protection for crime victims of persons that did not have legal status in the country. And so if a person was a crime victim, U visa was a process to provide, as long as that person provided assistance during the whole process with law enforcement, that they could possibly provided a protection and status under the law during that process. And some persons have actually been able to obtain a green card for legal status following that because of their cooperation, helping us to put bad guys away that were, and a lot of times persons that are illegal in the country that are committing criminal offenses. A lot of times they commit those offenses against people in the immigrant population, and they use that status to scare those persons not to report. So I've always let people know that there's a process to protect our victims and our immigrant victims here in North Carolina and across the country. And it's called U visa. And that program's been in place since 2005.
I know that there were several sheriffs that were elected probably around 2019 that openly declared in North Carolina that they were going to stop issuing detainers, and they had crime increase in their counties. Have you talked to sheriffs within North Carolina? I know Sheriff Johnson's probably very supportive. And what are you hearing there?
Well, over the past, say, 5 to 6 years, I've talked to numerous sheriffs about their position on honoring federal detainers. And of course, as I've said, in North Carolina and the courts have said that, we can honor federal detainers, but, it's a choice. We can, but we don't have to. Again, a majority of the sheriffs that I've talked to feel that honoring detainers apparently is the right thing to do to protect our communities. Because there are several, and I say that because there are several sheriffs in North Carolina that do and have been honoring federal detainers to hold persons until they can be released into the custody of immigration services.
And that is important to note. This isn't going to come as a shock. And in fact, I remember seeing throughout the year of 2024 some polling done in North Carolina where immigration, in particular after the Lake and Riley murder, has been a big deal. So this is something that I believe that North Carolina communities will celebrate. Have you heard from your constituents, and what are they feeling?
Well, it's still early. It's still early, but I really don't hear any negatives, from the citizens that I work for, the people that I serve. I don't really hear a lot of that. But you mentioned Lake and Riley. A lot of these cases where people have died at the hands of persons that were a criminal committing an offense against either American citizen or immigrant person in our country. The thing about it is a lot of these crimes are preventable if we have good policy in place and we have a message to persons that choose to come to North Carolina or anywhere in the United States, that if you want to come here legally, there's a process. But I think that if with the messaging, the policy, and letting people know that we are going to secure our borders, we are going to vet people properly before they come into the United States, and there's a legal process. I think all that helps to prevent victimization in our country. But I've seen where the situations of some administrations where I question the vetting process that is going on because it's such mass numbers of persons that have been allowed to come through and reside in the United States pending their immigration hearings. But your wonder is, how well are these persons vetted? Because the last thing I heard from I think Border Patrol when I was down in McAllen, Texas 3 months ago, working with officials down there, was that over 150 countries representative persons have come into our country. Nearly 10 million people, nearly 2 million people have come in here that the gotaways, that they don't even know who they are or where they're at. And my big worry in public safety and national security concerns would be is, are we going to see another 9/11 because we have failed to secure our borders properly and vet persons coming into our country? Well,
You
also,
raise a lot of good points.
and also then when you have identified criminal offenders, and if sheriffs choose not to honor detainers and release those people back out in the community, either pending cases or following disposal cases, there's always that potential for re-victimization of citizens and non-citizens, from people from the immigrant population, because a lot of times they're who preyed upon by these persons.
I know this law, the immigration portion to honor detainers, is set to go into effect December 1st. Is there a possibility that it will be challenged? Have you heard anything in the state?
You know, in this day and time, a lot of times laws go into effect and then they're challenged by the court system. I wouldn't be surprised, but here's the big question about federal agencies, particularly with ICE. We work with the FBI task force. We work with the ATF task force. We work with the DEA task force. We work with the Postal Service. We work with all these federal task forces. Why wouldn't we work with immigration task force and support their mission also? Because at the end of the day, securing our borders is about national security, public safety, and humanitarian concerns. And our job in our communities as a sheriff is to protect the people that live within our communities. And I feel like with this law being passed, House Bill 10, it's another unifying or making a uniform way of protecting and serving our citizens and people that reside in our communities. And I think it's a good bill. It's a long time coming. I'm glad to see it come about. Will it be challenged? Very well, it could be. But we're going to continue doing our work, protecting and serving our citizens, and we will continue working with our local, state, and federal partners, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. It's a force multiplier to protect American citizens, and then we're going to continue doing that and the people in our communities.
Well, Sheriff, God bless you. We know that your community is safer because you're the sheriff there. And I know personally, working with you over the years, you are committed to protecting your community, making sure it is a great place to live. And we thank you for your service.
Thank you. And I appreciate the communications, and we're going to continue doing our part. And I feel very optimistic ahead that we're going to see some good things ahead.